World history, we are there. We are in the final week. We are in week 8, semester 3, and so we are at the finish line. And so here's our final assignment for the school year. Final assignment for semester 3, our online learning. First of all, what you may have saw when you guys maybe checked our class site out. No on deck this week as we head into our final week. I think we've done enough on decks this week. Actually this year. And so there's no on deck this week, so we don't need to worry about turning any on deck. And so for your final assignment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reteach one thing, just recover something I think is kind of important. I think we got it. Maybe we didn't get it. So I'm going to reteach one thing. And then I'm going to, I guess you could say, kind of give you your final question, your final assignment, And so then at the same time, what I'm going to do today, and we do this every once in a while in world history, is that we make learning meaningful. We learn about something from the past, and you guys are always like, why would I learn about that? That's from such a long time ago. And we somehow try to make a connection onto what's going on in the world today. And it kind of like, hey, that makes sense, Mr. Flynn. I kind of get it. So our final week, there is no on deck. I'm going to reteach one thing and then give you your final assignment that will bring this most interesting school year to an end. And I've been teaching 26, 27 years. One of the reasons why I love my career is every day, every week, every month, every year is different. I may teach the same thing, but it's different. And this will be 5, 10, 15 years from now, hopefully when I'm like in the nursing home, when I'm like retired under a palm tree, that I can look back and say, man, remember that year of COVID-19 and Mr. Flynn attempted to teach online. I think we did okay. So here we go. I always hit that wrong thing. So I'm going to reteach one thing and then give you your final question for the year. Hey, I want to quickly just kind of recover, I think, one of the neat stories that we did kind of dealing with the Tiananmen Square massacre in China back in 1989. And, one of the things I really try to emphasize to you guys is that this big protest transpired and grew without the use of social media. And if you can think about all the examples that we have in the news today, and I'll have some for you here at the end, of how social media kind of helps spread information, or maybe you could say misinformation, but how this protest just continued to grow and crescendo in China. This Tiananmen Square massacre. And one of the most iconic images is the one I'm showing you right here that kind of dealt with this guy by the name of Tank Man. And as you can see, he doesn't really look like a radical or a protester. Long black dress pants, white collared shirt tucked in, briefcase, almost like he's going to work, leaving work, or maybe that day he never made it to work. But just how this protest in China just kind of crescendoed and grew throughout this country of over 1 billion people without the use of social media. And so if you remember, Tank Man was somebody who we never really knew the identity. I think our question was, what do you think happened to him? And I think for the most part, you guys all said he was probably captured, arrested, tortured, killed, probably a combination of everything. You would think that if he somehow survived that he'd make a cameo somewhere. But for the most part, he may not be among the living today. But to me, it was the power of how he made the decision to stand in front of these tanks and literally was ready to die that day. And if you think about it, that is so powerful because, we get up each morning and, we talk about maybe saying a morning prayer. We talk about going out and doing good and making a positive difference. But how this guy literally, was ready to die that day. And, if you could think back to the video that we watched, how when the tanks tried to drive around him, he kind of moved over and it was ready to die. And how he was just the cause of freedom and independence and democracy, and how great that stuff is. And it's not perfect. We kind of see that in our country today. It's not perfect, but man, it's better than, not having the freedom and stuff. So this lone man, how he stands in front of tanks and was ready to die. Again, he was arrested by what we call like the secret police. He was dragged away, obviously, by somebody. And where he ends up, we don't really know. We kind of, again, we made our inference. That's a good word for us as we kind of end the year, an inference on, on what happened to him. Again, he hasn't been seen since because I really think that if he was alive today, out and about, he would have made some cameos. He would have made an appearance. There's been, this is 1989. This has been, a long time, since the Tiananmen Square protest. So, yeah, that to me was this is one of the fun units I teach, because I think it's kind of like meaningful and practical, and these uprisings and protests. Heck, we're seeing them right now in the United States of America. How they transpire. And so I really try to emphasize to you guys that, man, this grew and crescendoed without social media. And some of the examples I'm going to give you here next to make learning meaningful, how these stories have grown because of social media, because of our cell phones, because of, videos and things that we see. So, again, I thought, the Tiananmen Square story, how it just kind of crescendoed again without the use of social media. Again, the Western media was there. The West, of course, we know the West is like United States, Western Europe, and Canada. We'll throw Canada into the mix. How they were there kind of covering that summit again, between the leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, and Deng Xiaoping, and two old guys sipping tea. But it was kind of like, hey, that's really boring. And across the street, you got this Tiananmen Square protest. You had the goddess of democracy, that big old statue. And so that's good stuff. But how this grew without social media. And so as I kind of bring things to an end, this is something that I've done in the past with world history and couldn't do it this year. Didn't feel like, I didn't want to assign it in our final week, because it's the final week and the weather has turned, we got a lot more freedoms and stuff. But one of the things that I kind of do at the end of the school year is we talk about stories of the year, and we kind of report on what we think might be the biggest story of the year. And so my connection here to make learning meaningful is how, again, in China, Tiananmen Square, how that protest grew without social media. But man, how do things today just get impacted so much by social media? And so I got 3 stories I'm going to pop at you here really quick, and then give you your final question. And the first one kind of deals with the death of Kobe Bryant. And it's funny just how what's happened this past year through 6 months has just kind of buried other top stories. And of course, I think with the NBA not even playing, and no sports really playing right now, but at the beginning of the year, this was like a major story. Kobe Bryant, was killed in that helicopter crash. 9 people were killed, including his daughter. To me, one of the most amazing things about the story, and there's a lot of things about it, is the fact that because of social media, Kobe Bryant's wife, from what I've read and from what I've heard about his death by social media before she was properly told, like by authorities. So what happens sometimes is like the police or somebody will come to your house and tell you about maybe someone in your family who's passed away or who's been in a car accident, but you get a phone call or at least something from the police or something. But how the people on the scene of the helicopter crash saw the bodies, and they took the pictures, and they were texting, and and how quickly the social media made the story spread that not only did Kobe Bryant's wife learn about his death, which is devastating when you lose a spouse, but her daughter too. So again, that's just the power of social media and making that connection of how in China, how it was able to grow and crescendo, tells you the power of like freedom and democracy. But how the social media aspect of this crash, how quickly the news spread. Again, I remember I was roughing at the courthouse, doing a great job, getting yelled at by grandparents and parents and whatnot. And again, in the courthouse, it's kind of like cell phone coverage is not very good. And as soon as I got out of the courthouse, my phone started working again, and just how it was blowing up, all the Kobe Bryant stories. And some of that, obviously, some of the information was not correct. So Kobe Bryant, obviously, if we did the story of the year, we would probably rally around COVID-19. How it just basically put the United States, put the world on hold. And how it shut most things down. And it's too bad we couldn't be in class talking about this, because there's so much that we can talk about, learn about. What's essential, what isn't essential. Getting haircuts, not essential. But going to the store to buy lottery tickets is essential. And there's a lot that we could have done with the story. Maybe we'll do it next year when you guys are in U.S. history, because I think you guys are all going to pass. I think it depends on some of you getting some stuff turned in. But how the information of COVID-19 just spread also through social media, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, and just so many other sites, Tumblr. Thank you for those who out there tumble. Just some good stuff on that how social media just kind of like shares that stuff out so quick, and just how quickly we get information. And so, again, how quickly that story's shed and spread. And then, of course, social media comes into play here with the death of George Floyd. Again, what really, to me, crescendoed the story is that somebody with their phone recorded him being arrested, him laying on the ground, the police officer, with his leg, his knee, whatever it was, kind of on his neck, head area. George kind of saying what he was saying about not being able to breathe, but how, somebody just with a simple device out of their pocket, how they were able to record it and then, spread that story out. And how quickly that story kind of spread. And again, the power of social media and the protest and some of the protests, turned into riots and looting and people getting beat up and stores being, stuff stolen. But how social media spreads that information out quick, and also how social media kind of like plays a role on if there's going to be like a gathering, if we're going to have like a protest downtown Kalamazoo or in South Bend, Indiana, how social media is used to kind of spread that information. And if you go back to the Tiananmen Square, there wasn't that social media aspect. It was word of mouth. It was like paper pamphlets. And so those are some stories I think that were just kind of heavily influenced by the spread of social media, where Tiananmen Square and China didn't have that. So making learning meaningful, taking something old, Tiananmen Square, no social media, kind of tie it into social media today. And then maybe if Tiananmen Square had social media, I don't know, maybe we're not dealing with a communist China like we do today. So here we go. Final assignment of the year, final question of the year. As I said earlier, there is no on deck this week, so we don't need to worry about submitting anything. As I was putting together our final question, our final assignment, I thought back to, what we've done these last 7 weeks, and we've done a lot these past 7 weeks. I don't know if it's more than other classes, less than other classes. I try to make it as fair and balanced as possible, knowing that you guys had other classes going on. At the same time, we had to keep learning here at Schoolcraft. But I also remember that, we kept learning the 3 weeks before spring break. When we first got shut down, we continued to teach online, whether it had been review, splashing in some new stuff, whatever it may be. So we've really been doing this for 10 weeks. And so as we head into our final week of semester 3, I'm not going to add any new learning. I'm not going to assign anything. I think for the most part, what we've done in these 10 weeks of online learning has been pretty dang good. And I appreciate what you guys have done, the effort you've done. It's not easy. Trust me. It's not easy being locked in quarantine. So there is no final question. So what I'm going to ask you to do for this week is when you watch this video, it could either be like Sunday or Monday, is that Synergy should be updated. So again, Synergy is the master grade book. Obviously we grade everything on Google Classroom, but Synergy is the master grade book. And so you guys kind of know right now what you got grade wise. And for the most part, it's credit or no credit. I think there's a couple of you somehow are getting a letter grade, and I'm letting the guidance department figure that out. But if you're happy and you're content on what you've got done for these last 7 weeks going into week 8, you're good. If you're missing something, if there was a gap week where you didn't turn something in, and trust me, I get it. I had weeks where, teaching and presenting and getting stuff was pretty easy. And I had a couple of weeks where, man, we had some stuff going on here and it was tough. It was challenging. So if you're good, I'm good. If you got something that you didn't turn in, I'll probably grade everything. I don't know what the deadline is. I'm waiting for like Mr. Daly to kind of give us that information. I know that we're done as teachers like Friday, June 12th. So if I get some information that, we're done grading like on Wednesday or Thursday, I'll put that out on a thread on Google Classroom. But hey, if you're good and if you're happy with your grade, you're done. You're done. You did a great job. Appreciate everything you guys have done. if there's something out there that you're missing, you didn't turn something in, maybe it was a living document from week 2, get that turned in, and I'll find some time to give you some credit towards that final assignment. So, hey, as we wind things down, it's not the way we normally end a traditional school year, but it's how we're going to end this one. So I hope you guys have a great summer, a safe summer. I'm hoping everybody's back next year, and we're back face-to-face teaching, learning. I hope some of you guys are in my U.S. history class. I think I'm teaching at least 1 hour of U.S. history, I'm hoping. So maybe some of you I get you again. And of course, some of you are like, I don't want Mr. Flynn again. I don't blame you. I want neither, because it's the same stories. I just changed the names of the stories, but it's all good stuff. So that's what we got. So, hey, thank you very much. One of the most interesting school years coming to an end. Thanks for putting up with me. And we started the year, if you can think back, learning, we did 9/11. That was, just the events of 9/11. And so did a lot of good stuff this year. So I'm happy. So for me to assign something new right now, we're good. We're good. So that is it for me. Done. Mr. Flynn is signing off. But if you need something this week, obviously email me. I could say Zoom, but nobody ever Zooms in, so I'm not going to Zoom. 3, 2, 1. Peace.